Okay, I think we'll get started. Welcome everybody to the session here at AITA called Measuring and Monetizing Women's Empowerment Within Climate Investments. I'm Jeanette Gurung. I'll be moderating and I'll also be a speaker. And we're, first of all, like to say we're very grateful to AITA for sponsoring this, hosting this event, and talk more about that. Let me first of all just ask in the audience, how many of you have ever even heard of the W+ standard? Here, great. Okay, that's what I thought. It was, well, that's why you're here, so thank you very much for coming. So here in this session, we're going to introduce a little bit into the W+ standard, but I won't give you all the details of it. But we're trying to talk to you about how we're building an ecosystem around this idea of measuring and monetizing women's empowerment within projects and within supply chains. And so in order to do this, we've got the panelists that I will be introducing in a minute. They're representing organizations that are playing various roles within this ecosystem, including investors, climate project developers, there's carbon credit generators and traders, there's women's organizations that are managing community projects. And so some of our panelists will speak to some of those roles and talk about what they're doing and how they would see value in using the W+ standard and how they're play a role in this ecosystem as we expand it. So with no further ado, I'll quickly introduce them and then I'll allow them to say something about themselves as well. Starting on the my far left, your far right, is Edith. Edith Kiss is the co-founder and the chief commercial officer for Integrity Global Partners, which is a company enabling investors to unlock fair and equitable capital at scale through the development of carbon and other environmental assets. She currently leads the commercial origination, evaluation of all the projects they're doing, including all due diligence, risk assessment, and financial structuring on projects. She brings more than 17 years of experience in the entire value chain of carbon markets: project development, finance, origination, investment deal structuring, execution, sales, and trading. Awesome. Next to Edith is Destiny Knock. Destiny is the Chief Sustainability Officer of DevStream, which is a carbon streaming company. And she's also an Assistant Professor of Engineering and Public Policy and Civil and Environmental Engineering at Carnegie Mellon University in the US. She's a leader in energy justice, environmental justice, sustainable energy transitions, and the energy poverty climate change nexus. She has pioneered new measures of poverty, energy poverty, to help utility companies identify vulnerable populations and energy deficits. Thank you, Destiny, for coming. Next to me is Cécile Nejebe, who's the president and founder of the African Women's Network for Community Management of Forests, called REFICOF. She's also the coordinator of Cameroon Ecology. She's an agronomist and a social forester from rural Cameroon who specializes in women's leadership. Her extensive experience includes work that addresses gender's intersection with land tenure, climate change, and reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation in developing countries. She founded REFICOF, which is now in, I think, 20 African countries and just keeps expanding. It's amazing. She's won so many awards. I would have to take too long a time to list them all, but believe so. She's quite impressive. It's a little strange to do my own introduction, but I'll just tell you a little bit. I'm a forester also by training and also a gender and development expert with over 25 years of experience designing and delivering capacity strengthening programs to integrate gender and women's empowerment into agriculture, natural resource management, forestry related organizations, both private and public. I'm the founder of WOCON, Women Organizing for Change in Agriculture and Natural Resource Management. We're almost 20 years old. And we are a membership network in about 1,450 members in about 119 countries. All of us are foresters, agronomists, livestock managers, etc. So we come from a more technical world into the field of gender equality. And I am the innovator of the W+ standard, so you can bang on me all you like about how it's no good and what useless thing it is. But anyways, that's what we are. Okay, I will start off and introduce a little bit. As I said, I'm not going to get into the technical aspects of the standard. We have a whole website. I have business cards, and I encourage everybody to take it. There's a lot of material on this. But I will, okay, let me just start out like this. Why is it that WOCON, this women-led organization working in gender equality, is speaking on an AITA platform? Doesn't that seem a little bit odd to anybody? It does to me. For those of you, some of my friends don't even know what AITA is, so that just shows you the gap. But I mean, this is the home of the carbon professionals at AITA, right? And so how did we get into this world? I think it's worth thinking about. So the mission of WOCON has always been to build the enabling environments for gender equality and women's empowerment within these sectors of agriculture, forestry, natural resource management, right? And so, as I said, for 20 years or more, we've been doing a lot of training, capacity building on gender mainstreaming. But we had stopped and thought about it one time, and we thought we're not having the results we want. The results we are really looking for is a way to drive new funding, finance, to women's organizations. The world as we see it is full of women's organizations and cooperatives that are managing forest, water, natural resources, agriculture resources, etc. They're under the radar, they're not maybe so much known, but like all women's organizations at all levels around the world, the funding is almost non-existent for the incredible work that they do. So WOCON's mission was always to find a way to support these women-led groups. So we learned about the carbon markets a long time ago, and we thought, could that be a way? And for those of us who understand the original, the idealistic idea of carbon markets was also a way to provide funding to projects and to channel carbon financing or climate financing, right? So with that idea, we thought, would this be a similar kind of architecture we could use to finalize ways to finance these women's groups? And could we measure women's empowerment in the ways that carbon is measuring for an environmental good? Could we use a measurement for women's empowerment as a way to create a social asset? So it basically was done to create this, to incentivize carbon project developers, like some of you in the room, to increase your engagement with and the provision of benefits to women inside your project areas. And particularly important for sectors like forestry, where this is relatively difficult to find evidence of. It was also to offer this non-grant-based financial mechanism for this results-based payments to women and women's organizations. So this is idea that it's not to women entrepreneurs, because right now, and you may have heard several things across the COP about, there's new funds that are coming up for gender and climate finance. However, almost all of those that I've ever heard of are for entrepreneurs, right? They're usually the same old model of loans to what they're now calling women climate entrepreneurs, which is great. However, our point is not every woman is an entrepreneur, and not every woman will be able to access that kind of funding. So let's find another way to create a blended financial structure that can bring finance to women who are maybe subsistence farmers or would not qualify in a bank's loaning program to receive a loan as an entrepreneur. So I think we took the approach and the architecture of a carbon standard, and we applied it to gender equality to create this certification framework that generates W+ credits. And guys in the back of the room, could I have the second slide, please? There's only 2 slides. This was just, oh, they won't be able to see much, Cecile. There's a lot on this slide. Can you maybe shift over just a little bit? And I'm not going to read the slide. It's for you to see, and all your technical questions are here. But what I do want to tell you is that when we decided to create this standard, we did it by asking women in the rural areas of Kenya and rural areas of Nepal. And we said, if we are to measure women's empowerment, what do we measure? What does it mean to you? What you see in the wheel here are the 6 areas that those 2 groups of women in rural areas told us was important for their empowerment. So we then took each of those and developed a method to using qualitative and quantitative data that would be able to produce a measurement, just like carbon, where it's the same idea. We're measuring a baseline, we're measuring results. The credits are generated from the difference between the 2, right? And so in this case, credits are generated specific to those domains. So project developers need to choose 1. They could choose all 6, any combination of the 2. Whatever suits the project is what the domains that are selected. And then the credits that are generated are W plus health or W plus leadership or something like this, right? There's a lot more that you can see on the website. The other thing to mention is it's a standalone certification system. It's not necessarily linked to anything related to climate. An example is it was used in a bank in Vietnam for financial literacy for women, right? But it can also be, so it's a standalone credit, that's called the W plus credit, but it's also possible to link it to a carbon credit. And here I also want to say that when we developed the standard, we were fortunate enough to be working with carbon standard experts, one of whom is in the room, and I'd like to call him out. So Ingo Poole from South Pole, and his colleague Tanushree Bagh and others have been absolutely instrumental in helping us develop a rigorous standard that kind of passes all the tests. And we're very lucky they remain on our W Plus Advisory Council, and so we continually seeking advice for them. So this, and I should say that we have a relationship with Vera, with VCS, so that if you're using if you're using a VCS or a Vera standard or SD Vista, we can incorporate it quite intricately together. We can offer you the chance on the Vera registry to issue a W plus labeled carbon credit, a VCU, right? But it's also possible to stack it onto any kind of other credit as well. It's a separate certification system, whether that's a gold standard, a Plan Vivo, a water credit, a biodiversity credit, anything else. And I think that's very attractive to the buyers that we're hearing about. So there's the buyers who are, of course, the corporates, and the other buyers who are buying carbon credits, who like very much this idea that they can have this very rigorous, transparent co-benefit. And they're also of interest to investors who are looking at this as a way to put the S into the ESG in a way that can be monetized. So I will like to turn over to the 3 partners. I'll also, Ingo, will you be staying with us, or are you going to run off? You're going to run off. Okay, would you like to say something? Because I do want to give you a moment. Okay, you tell me when you're, okay, don't run off. So today we have 3 key partners here with us who are helping us to build this W Plus ecosystem. And I'm going to now turn it over to them. Edith, I think I'll start with you. So my question is to you, tell us a little bit about what Integrity Global Partners is doing and how your organization intends to use the W Plus standard, ideally with a concrete example.
Thanks a lot. Good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Thanks a lot for having me on this panel. So my name is Edith Kiss. I'm, as Jeanette introduced me, co-founder and chief commercial officer at Integrity Global Partners. We are a relatively new mission-driven firm in the nature-based solution space with a mission to unlock capital at scale, to help scale the market, while at the same time also raise the bar on integrity. So looking at obviously the current challenges of the market, but also at the financial challenges and the scale. So my background is in the carbon markets. I am very familiar with it, and as you mentioned, I've started 17 years ago in the carbon markets, and I only heard about it a year ago, or like earlier this year. So I was like super excited about it. I was like, why didn't I hear about it before? And now I understand it was not the target. But as an environmental economist, I think and then, you know, we have been using market-based mechanisms for climate change. Now, hopefully for nature, biodiversity credits are emerging, and I think this is very compatible with it. So immediately for us, that was like a very exciting thing to build into our investment thesis or impact thesis. On our side, we have a holistic approach. We really believe that in order to get the capital at scale into the nature-based part, we need to have a holistic approach, a holistic landscape approach, which is mostly regarding the impact KPIs, but also the multiple revenue streams. And so we come from this little bit more holistic approach, and again, having seen how powerful the carbon market can be to channel private capital into these projects, we believe that this kind of, at the moment, I think more like as a label rather than separate assets, have a very important role to play. Doing same in biodiversity, as I mentioned, and other SDGs. I have seen the recent webinar. I love the word used, pinkwashing. We believe that indeed there is a lot of greenwashing happening actually on the SDG side beyond the carbon, and it's time now to go to quantified and measured outcomes if you want to get a premium in the market. If you just want storytelling, it's fine, right? We can keep it as a storytelling, but for getting that premium we're looking for, I think that's where it's very exciting. So we, on our side, what we're trying to piloting is for our projects how we can build in the W+ standard into the design. At the moment, again, more looking at as a additional label, but with the hope that at some point we can unbundle them and also create those revenue streams and help with the gender positive outcomes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Destiny, same question to you from DevStream. Tell us how your organization intends to use the W+ standard and illustrate it if you can.
So, hi everybody, my name is Destiny Nock and I'm an engineer by training, and DevStream is a technology-based sustainability company that focuses on developing and monetizing environmental assets. And so the place that we've started with that is in the voluntary carbon market space, looking at carbon offset credits. And so what we do broadly is we actually help streamline the process to track, monetize, and value the carbon credits. So where, putting in one project at a time might take 12 to 18 months to verify that that actually is reducing carbon, what we do is we have programs that we are then verifying, and then projects within a certain region can come and be a part of that. And so one example, since you asked for a concrete example, that I will give is our LED lighting program, where we have been partnering with a project developer in sub-Saharan Africa and actually the larger continent now. We've expanded that to help switch out kerosene lamps and incandescent light bulbs for the more efficient lighting opportunities. And so then that itself would generate carbon offset credits. And one of the things that we see as a key benefit of partnering with WOCAN specifically for the W+ credits is to see that we are getting that S part of the ESG to make sure that some of those benefits are going to women, because we do know that increasing air quality indoors, right, making sure that people don't have to go and source as much firewood, that can actually provide real social benefits. And so that is what DevStream focuses on, and we believe that by monetizing environment and social benefit, that can actually help make projects that were not feasible without this extra revenue stream possible, right? And then the last thing is, for us, we really want to make sure that the revenue from these carbon credits stays within the actual developers on the ground and within country. So that's why we only take a portion of the credits. It's between like 3 to 25%, depending on the type of project and the type of credit as well. But then, leaving a large portion of the W+ credits in country as well, we believe can also help sustain long-term generational wealth.
Fascinating. Thank you very much. Cecile, tell us about your organization and... Does it work? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Janet, and thank you for involving us in this side event. I think it's one of the very important because at least we are talking about women and rural women. In my context, women own nothing, and they are doing everything, and they are making things happen, but they don't have any reward. So for us, W Plus is something which will help at least women to get access to resources that will help them not only to upscale what they are doing, but also to improve their living conditions. In a few days, in January, we are preparing a 2 weeks training on the ground with rural women on Women Plus, W Plus. And this is the first time that we'll do that with the local women on the ground. And I think it's extremely important because we will be with them, but also our team will be there. So that, and from there, we will make sure that women themselves understand how to measure all those. We are working on leadership. We are promoting. We have realized that if you want to have any change, any significant change in our communities, women have to be trained or supported in their role in the leadership negotiation roles and capacities. They need those capacities. And W Plus will help us to get into that and measure how much and how well the leadership could be improved within those communities, and how well and how much they can now use the W Plus to follow and monitor all what they are doing. What it means for them, first, they'll have capacities. Second, they will know what they are doing and how they can value that. And they will know also what are the returns, the benefit that they can generate. Financial benefit, technical benefit, but also leadership benefit. And it's key. We have realized that when women have economic empowerment, they are more likely to influence what is going on in their environment. So for us, it's extremely important. And it's at that level, the level of communities themselves, but also at the level of our organization. Women Plus is very important for us to have those capacities to implement and also follow up and evaluate. So I think that's how we think we will be using W Plus in our communities.
Can you tell a little bit about the project itself and what you're doing?
The project that we're going to where we're going to have training on W Plus is a project on mangrove restoration. We have women in the island we call Manoka in Cameroon who are using mangrove wood to dry the fish. They are fisherwomen and all their activities in around fishing. So they cut the mangrove because the mangrove wood is very valuable and it really gives value to their fish. So now for us to make sure that they are using mangrove but in a sustainable way, we have started a mangrove restoration project with them. They are trained in how to do the nurseries, how to plant, how to follow up the mangrove that is restored, that is planted. So they are planting the mangrove within their organization, but also we have two kind of activities. We have that restoration of mangrove, but we also have the improve of stuff where they have to, that is, in the past, they could use, let me take an example, if they could use 10 cubic meter of mangrove wood to dry their fish, with the improved stuff, now it's divided by 50. It's now 50 instead of 100. So we have gained 50%. But not only the mangrove wood itself, but that has also improved their health, because it's a lot of heat, and they have been really having problems with the heat. That those improved drying stove have improved their health. They have saved time. The fish that usually was taken, let's say it was dry after 24 hours, today is dry after 6 hours. They have saved time, they have improved the health, and they have improved their income. And the mangrove is doing better because they have saved 50% of the wood quantity. That's the project we're going to work on. And we have 200 women that are engaged in that island. All their business is fishing and drying fish for the market.
And in addition to this mangrove project, you have other projects in other countries within the Refikoff
Yes,
forest?
We are in 20 countries in Africa. French-speaking countries and English-speaking countries, Spanish-speaking countries, because we have Guinea Equatorial. They speak French, yeah. And next year, I think we'll be 25 because Sao Tome and Principe is coming, Ethiopia is coming. 5 new countries are joining the network. And in other countries, we have almost the same restoration. Let me take Togo. We have Togo, we have Benin, we have Cote d'Ivoire, we have DRC, we have Congo. What we are doing there is not in mangrove, but it's a forest, terrestrial forest. And women, we have negotiated, because we don't have ownership of forest, of land, of anything. But we have pushed, in Cote d'Ivoire, we have pushed the government, they have allocated, now we are 8,000 hectares to the women, and they are planting trees in association with agricultural crops. In Cote d'Ivoire, it's cassava and yams. In Togo, it's maize, cassava, and soya beans. In the DRC, the wood is for most of the tree planting activity is with how to call it, cassava also, but part is for the energy. So they have the rotation. Also there there is a process of having community forests, because now the legal framework is there. So we are also supporting women to have community forests, and we can have up to 50,000 hectares there. And in Congo-Brazzaville, it's trees with agriculture, with maize, peanut also, and yeah, in that Congo-Brazzaville. In Cameroon, we have the mangrove, but we also have in the terrestrial forest, where we have trees and plantains, trees and cassava, and trees and soya beans. You see? And Jeanette, and believe me, and you can visit that, it has changed the life of women. That's why we need this. Because why? Why is that? Most of them, example in Cameroon, most of them, they are planting fruit trees in combination with agricultural crops. They take agricultural crops for their family, and then the surplus is sold in the market. The same with fruit. And the fruit is used for the family diet, is improved the family diet, and overproduction is also in the market. But you know what? The trees are there to serve the humanity. Why they are not paid for that? Because they are planting trees for the whole humanity. Because it will be there, the carbon is there. So Women Plus will help them to evaluate what they are generating and how they can have the best benefit of their effort. I think that is fair, right?
Yes.
So we have that in those countries, and our objective is to upscale and cover all the countries of REFACOF. Thank you.
Beautiful. And this is a woman who knows her project details, and I mean, you sleep with that. I mean, you really embedded that knowledge. And I think Cecilia has pointed to something that is really close to our heart, which is, can we use this financial mechanism to pay these women for this global service that they're providing through taking care of trees, for example? And the second issue I just want to raise, and then Ed, it'll come to you, but another thing I think you touched on, and Cecile works a lot in land tenure, and this is a big issue because if carbon rights require some degree of land tenure or ownership, does that mean women are excluded from having any rights to the carbon? And in many countries, this is coming up as a problem, right? Changing land rights and policies is a very long and very difficult thing to do. But one thing we realize is that with the W+, you don't need to have land rights or land tenure issues because we're just measuring women's empowerment. We don't care about, I mean, we care clearly, but it's not necessary. So this is another, I think, advantage of linking a carbon credit to a W+ credit means it's a way of getting around this limitation of land tenure. Ed, can you tell me about more about your Malawi project, for example? After you heard this great details,
yes, I did realize I didn't give you examples, so I wanted to come. Thanks for coming back to that. So I fully agree, and it's really the beautiful thing is there are so much synergies with the nature, again, the nature-based solutions, where, again, we also have been using carbon as a proxy because we didn't have any other mechanism, right? So we know that nature-based solutions is so much more than carbon. And again, I think that's why it's so beautiful to bundle into that. So I think what we have seen is there are two, like in terms of use case, first of all, I think it's really, we're talking about a lot of high integrity carbon credits, how we move the bar, right? And so having this, again, this quantified and methodology, it really helps with the project design where project developers might not know how to actually build that in. So in Malawi, we have a greenfield project. We have partnered with a local community organization across 4 districts, massive land area where we know we need to do land restoration. But the communities there also, they use 3-stone fire. And so actually improved cook stoves makes a lot of sense. Now that part of the market has also been better. So it's also very hard to build your business case around it. But then suddenly you realize that in cook stove projects, you have a 1-to-1 almost ratio with the women, right? While in a restoration project, it might not be 1-to-1. So that's interesting, that really nice to see that now you have the methodology how to calculate the ratio of the BCUs that will be tagged with that label. But again, yeah, in that case, it was really interesting that we have to be starting with a cook stove because that's something where we have the households. Indeed, even in cook stove projects, you don't need to have the land rights and figure out everything. But we don't want to do just cook stoves. We're looking at how we're going to change the, help transform into the land use and restore. Actually, it's very degraded, unfortunately. It's not anymore conservation, but it's restoration. And I think it's really important guidance. We have already reached out to local women organizations, and they're super keen about it because they're like, wow, this can be now paid for. Let's see, hopefully the market will be there. I think we still need to collectively work on demand side, as we have with every market, environmental markets, and who is going to pay for it. I'm quite convinced that as a premium it will come first, and then, but you're right, it could be even in the case when you cannot use carbon, a nice alternative. The other example I would mention is we're working in the project developer NGO in Ethiopia, and when they are a bit more advanced, they have a PDD even draft and have been planting trees, so it's restoration, and they have been doing so much already with the women. And when you look around and say like, oh my God, this is just almost like ticks all the boxes, probably it will just go, and they didn't know about it, right? And so if you don't have this tool, then it will be really hard to get your credits differentiated on the market and get that premium. So again, it's, I think, in both in very early stage design, super helpful, but also those who have been already going beyond the minimum and have been going really haven't been able to just quantify it and show it. I think it's super interesting. And the third one we haven't talked about, but also the safeguard side, and how to think about to just simply, you can discuss about it. Could be like required for every project to have some minimum safeguards, right? On just making sure women's rights and all that. So not necessarily measuring the positive outcome, but at least some sort of safeguards. On our side, we're using the IFC performance standards, so there is something there. But I think that's worth also mentioning in the broader context of carbon markets and this work. I think I'm super keen to bring it into the mainstream carbon because people need to know about it and need to start testing on the ground.
Destiny, do you want to add to what you said before?
Yeah, so just to add to what I said before, one of the things that I really do love about the W+ standard is that it is based on the voluntary carbon markets, because I think that additional aspect of it is really important, right? Like if somebody is required to benefit women, right, that doesn't necessarily get at what we want, because we want to incentivize people to do it on their own. And I think that, pairing it with also voluntary carbon credits is like an important part of this partnership. And so then with DevStream, one of the things that we have been focusing on is how to tie and marry those credits, because we do think that, like you said, having the demand right there is one of the challenges. Like in certain markets, you do have to create demand, and other people are doing projects, that they know are meaningful right now, even if the demand for buying and selling the credits isn't there yet. But that's why we do believe that pairing them together can be a really big game changer in terms of, one, creating the supply, starting off with high quality credits, because again, we don't want to do pink washing, and then tying those with high quality carbon offsets. And so that's one of the reasons why we're really excited about the LED lighting and solar home system program, because we have been partnering with a developer that's already in multiple countries within the continent of Africa to think about how are we going to switch out these kerosene lamps, who does that benefit, how do we track those benefits, and how can we do that in a technology-based way that's automated, and then also track that, right? And so that's one of the things that DevStream is focused on bringing, is the project management solution as well, to remotely tracking the benefits that you're bringing, but then going in and looking at how many credits you've generated over the lifetime.
Thank you very much. I know the burning question in the audience is, what's the experience, what's the price, what are these credits selling for, right? Building the market for this, I'm going to tell you, it's not easy because it's so innovative but the people who best understand the W+ are those people who understand carbon markets. It makes sense to them. But there's no compliance market for gender. I don't think there ever will be, quite frankly. So the corporates were interested in this idea? Well, some of them, as I said, to avoid a kind of a pink washing. Also, some of them do have SDG 5 targets that they're keen to do. Also, I think for consumer bases and supply chains, increasingly, also particularly within agro-business, that's where there's an understanding that women farmers are key to the sourcing of whether it's shea butter or a lot of other products. I think they're also understanding it. But I do want to say that there will be a sale announced later this month, I believe, from some agroforestry credits, W+ credits out of Brazil, that have sold for $20 a credit. I thought that was pretty okay, right? We're not talking about $1.50. This was, these are women, right? It's not carbon. So our intention is to keep it, and I think DevStream as well, and everybody's agreed, let's keep it to that and try to go even higher than that. With the potential buyers and the buyers that we talk to are also very happy about the fact that this at least 20% is given directly to the community. There also is a sense that they're very keen to see money flow directly to community in a transparent, verifiable way. So that seems to be an advantageous thing as well. But we don't yet know what will the premium price be on top of a carbon credit. We're super excited to see more carbon projects apply the W+. And I've been here, I think Pierre is in the room who's interested to do it. We get a lot of calls, and I think in this year we'll be seeing perhaps the first set of carbon credits that are going to come out with W+. And so we'll be able to, I'm hearing requests from corporate buyers, and then I'm in this unfortunate position to say there's no supply. So let's see, you know, we're very, very keen to turn that around. And hopefully with partners like these, we'll be able to do this in a very, I'm super excited. These are my best partners imaginable. And I think what's wonderful is to hear Cecile talk with such passion about, this is what it's all about for WOCAN, this. But this whole system, this whole ecosystem is required. And we believe it's really important to provide investors. And it was DevStream, it was Destiny's organization that got so excited about the W+. And I couldn't understand why, quite frankly. And they said, because you put the S into the ESG. And I thought, what? And they said, for 10 years, we've been looking for a methodology that would quantify and monetize a social outcome as an asset, and we gave up. And then suddenly we heard about you. And so I think that's also of some value, right?
Yes, I can strongly attest to that. I think that, you know, for us at DevStream, again, like while we focused on carbon credits initially, we really wanted to monetize and develop social benefit projects. As a professor at Carnegie Mellon University, my whole job is about how do you measure things that people actually care about. So like one of the things that I did was I actually was able to take electricity usage data and then use that to determine are people at risk of a heat stroke in their house based on how much electricity they're using and what part of the region they live in, right? And so when I think about broadening that to, you know, business and how do we get people to truly invest in things that benefit people, it's not enough to just say, okay, we know that these people are benefiting, but also like what's the value, what value you're bringing to the community, what value you're bringing to health, right, time, food security, all these things that, you know, we really care about and that we need to live a high quality of life. And, you know, you want to be able to verify that companies are actually doing what they put on their websites when they try to get us, you know, feeling good about the projects that they're doing. And so that's why we really like the W+ standard that WOCAN has developed, pioneered by Jeanette here, because it is about trying to make sure that even in our environmental-based projects, right, that benefit goes to someone. If we did 20 million environmental projects, but all the benefits went to the same community, that wouldn't be a good thing, right? But if we did, you know, if those projects' benefits were spread out across multiple countries and bringing everyone to the same standard of quality of life across the world, then that is truly, you know, environment and social benefit now married together, and that's what we're hoping for.
And I think for us as well, we believe very strongly that the climate outcome also benefits from having women engaged in it, right? And Cecile, do you want to
I think women are key actors in addressing climate change issues. And even our organization, I don't understand really, even our organization is a permanent struggle to get access to climate finance. The women at the ground level, in the villages, those are the solutions to the climate change. But they are not getting anything. Is it because we are women? I don't know. I think it always, they say you have to show evidence. You know, in my culture, if I want to say that I have to prove. If my brother have to prove once, I have to prove 5 times. Yeah? That's women. It's incredible. But how can we continue to heal the planet without women, or having women for like laborers and not, you know, it doesn't make sense. Unpaid everything, unpaid work, domestic unpaid work, climate unpaid work, every agriculture unpaid work. How are we going to build a sustainable development of a sustainable future for our...
And it trickles up, and I asked Cecile recently, when was the last time she paid herself a salary?
Oh, I don't even remember.
So, I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah?
Right, and I think this is not understood, and with all the talk about the trillions, billions, whatever it is in climate finance, it just zero hits down at this level, and so this is something we're trying to change. I'd like to open it up. Are there any? Yes. Yeah. Are there any questions? Yeah, please.
Maybe this one.
Maybe this one.
There you go. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Vous m'excusez, hein? Vraiment, je ne peux pas parler mon propre partout aussi là, on ne va pas se comprendre.
Français, mon frère.
Voilà.
Là, ça va nous
Donc, depuis, j'entends seulement les mains qui bougent et on parle de business et d'argent. Donc, je ne sais pas si vous pouvez nous permettre, pour nous qui sommes vraiment un peu encore très très bas dans le domaine de l'anglais, qu'on comprenne un peu en quelques mots le sens. Oui, des discussions. Vous avez vraiment beaucoup parlé. On sent que c'est très intéressant, mais on a envie d'avoir un peu
la compréhension de ce qu'on dit.
D'accord.
Je vais vous expliquer en français. Yeah, please let me reply in French. You know, this guy, you only have to speak English. Nous, on parle français. Donc, on va parler français, mon frère. Je viens du Cameroun, on parle français.
Merci beaucoup.
Donc, la séance que nous avons organisée, c'est parce que cette dame, en collaboration avec beaucoup d'autres, nous avons développé les standards pour mesurer l'apport des femmes dans le changement climatique, la lutte contre le changement climatique, la gestion durable des forêts et des ressources naturelles, la lutte contre la pauvreté. Donc ces standards-là, comme les femmes, comme vous connaissez dans notre culture, n'ont aucun droit de propriété sur quoi que ce soit. Même mon père ne m'a pas donné droit à l'héritage parce que c'est culturel. Donc on dit, avec ces standards, on peut bien mesurer la contribution des femmes. Et aujourd'hui, avec les crédits carbone, on va jusqu'à mesurer ces crédits, combien de carbone elles peuvent produire pour qu'elles aient quand même des revenus. Donc c'est cette méthodologie que nous sommes en train d'expliquer, de présenter. Et moi, je reçois une équipe d'experts en janvier au Cameroun pendant 2 semaines. Nous irons travailler avec les femmes qui sont en train de reboiser la mangrove. Non seulement elles reboisent la mangrove, mais elles ont aussi acquis des pratiques de gestion durable de cette mangrove. Parce que nous les avons amenées à améliorer leur four. Ce sont les femmes qui font dans le poisson, qui fument le poisson. Ce sont les femmes fumeuses de poisson dans une île du Cameroun que nous appelons Manoka. Et ces femmes-là, elles sont plus de 200. Mais on a commencé un peu parce qu'il n'y avait pas beaucoup d'argent. On a conçu avec l'université de Douala des fours qui leur permettent, au lieu d'utiliser 100 mètres cubes de bois, aujourd'hui elles utilisent 50 mètres cubes de bois. Elles ont amélioré leur santé. On n'a pas encore fait les recherches pour comprendre qu'est-ce qui s'est amélioré, mais elles ressentent que les flux de chaleur qu'elles recevaient avec les fours traditionnels ont presque disparu. Le poisson qu'elles pouvaient fumer en 24 heures, et elles le fument aujourd'hui en 6 heures. Donc elles ont gagné en temps, elles ont gagné en santé et elles ont gagné en gestion même du bois de mangrove. Et aussi, elles ont gagné en argent, en revenus. Alors, ces standards-ci vont aider à ce qu'on capitalise tout ça pour mettre ça dans ce qu'on appelle empowerment, donc l'amélioration du pouvoir économique des femmes. On quantifie ça. Et l'argent qu'on donne là dans le changement climatique, on donne aussi un peu aux femmes. C'est elles qui réparent tout et elles n'ont rien. Donc c'est ça l'essentiel de la discussion. Et elle a partagé ses expériences, l'autre dame aussi a partagé ses expériences.
Voilà, là vraiment je comprends très bien parce que je suis un natif de la ville de Kribi.
Ah.
Donc quand vous parlez...
Nous sommes à Londres.
Voilà, moi je suis né à Kribi, c'est ma ville natale. Voilà. Donc vous comprenez que...
I think this is the W+ professor right here, but yes. Yes, please.
Thank you, ladies, for your presentations and the discussions. I'm Dr. Zoe. I'm from Zimbabwe. I'm in the hemp space. And it's quite exciting to actually hear that there are some initiatives to actually include women in this carbon space. So if I was understanding well, Jeanette, what you're saying is that this W plus standard is going to enhance a carbon credit and put more value.
It can be tied to it. It's not a carbon credit.
Okay.
It's the measurement of, it's a women's empowerment credit. So you could call it a gender credit.
Okay.
Same idea as carbon. So a carbon credit is a proxy for an environmental outcome, right?
Okay.
This is a credit that's demonstrating the change in women's lives from a baseline to a result, right?
So we are saying it's a gender credit.
Yeah, it's a gender
which
credit.
You can attach to a carbon
tie
credit.
It onto a carbon
which gives
credit.
more value
right.
to your carbon
But you don't
credit.
have to. You could do it in, exactly.
Well, we are hoping that it creates more value to the carbon credits.
Right, and what's interesting is for carbon project developers, they can make a choice whether to use it as a standalone, just a gender credit, and sell it like that, or to link it onto their carbon. And they can shift. They could do 1 year, they could use it with carbon and then say, the price is better if we don't link it to carbon, and then shift the next year.
So the question goes to then, Edith. Who buys these gender credits? It's my first time to actually hear about a gender credit.
That's a very good question. That's exactly what Jeanette was telling. I think we are watching this space with a lot of interest. What I can attest to more or talk about is that what we have seen in the past few years, especially before the market kind of collapsed, that when the market started to rallied and the price increased, we definitely started seeing a differentiation of quality according to SDGs and different labels. And what we felt is that it wasn't even appropriate yet because the SDG benefits were not quantified. They were qualitative, right? That's why I call them a little bit like greenwashing, but storytelling more like. And it's partly because we didn't have the tools. Like 10 years ago, all we could say on biodiversity is the number of hectares. Today, we have so many instruments with new technologies, with bioacoustics, with environmental DNA. We can actually measure now things, not just in hectares. So same thing in the social or aspects. It's not necessarily technology, but it's more like I think the methodology and the brain power that went in. How can we quantify? And we tried. I used to manage the Althea Climate Fund, and we have been investing in 2013 in this, and we had the gender as one of the KPIs, but we couldn't say much about it. We said, well, there are this amount of women. Yeah, exactly, this amount of women. And again, as I said, we wouldn't be able to get a better price for it. Our investors liked it, that I was reporting at least on the numbers. But where I think the market will change and where you will see the real premium, especially once hopefully the market, the underlying comes back, is that now it becomes quantified, and I think it's and verified and audited, right? So the greenwashing or pinkwashing, all that aspects can be taken out. So that's why I'm quite confident. On the other side, unbundled, it's not something we have looked into in detail. So we'll be working closely with Jeanette. Again, on my side, I can tell you how have been working personally on creating demand for these voluntary carbon credits, and so went through the creation of the demand side and other assets. So have some ideas how we can encourage, and it's to be linking to some of the targets. Typically, you need to create some incentives and look forward to collaborating on that. But as Jeanette said, we need an ecosystem. We need to create first maybe some willing corporates, test it. What does resonate for them, right? Where do they put it in? Is it in their SDG targets or reporting? Somewhere we need to give them the carrots or the rewards for doing it because it's voluntary.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. There we go. I don't have to yell. I'm Elizabeth Varanis from the American Forest Foundation. I was really interested to hear in your background in forestry in particular. And so just kind of a specific question about that and how you see forestry connecting to the standard, how you might see it apply to forest carbon projects, specifically improve forest management, that sort of thing, given your background.
She's also a forester. We're both social foresters, right? So we come from that sense of forest managed for communities. the world that Cecile and I know is where women are often the ones not only doing the wood collection for fuel wood, but also often even guarding the forest, protecting the forest. You'll see in many forestry projects, women are not used, but hired for nurseries. That's the common thing we see. And that's fine, that's a green job. But you know, forestry is so much more than this, the nursery and planting the tree, right? Who's gonna water it? Who's gonna nurture it? And this is the kind of unpaid care labor that we see women around the world putting into the forest management. But you know, forestry, as you know, I call it the sector of toxic masculinity, right? And so this isn't often talked about, but this is a sector that's not seeing women and their roles in management. So this is the other thing, that measuring something is what surfaces it so that you can see it. And I think that's the first thing. Before we get them paid, we have to make it seen what their contribution is. So that's a lot of what. And are they entrepreneurs? No. And so all of that finance that's giving loans to women entrepreneurs and green jobs, I'm not sure how much of that will get to women in forestry. Do you want to say anything on that?
Yeah. I think, as Jeanette has said, let me just add that all the social aspect of forestry are covered by women. I can just cite one example. We have that in many of our places in Cameroon and elsewhere. The practices, management practices of women. There is a tree that gives fruit or nut in the forest. Women will take the nut or the fruit and they will leave the tree there. But usually men cut for timber. They cut and it's finished. When it's cut, it dies. But women will be using that tree generation after generation. So this is how women are protecting the forest. But I think that it's even known, but what I don't understand is why it's recognized on the paper and by saying, but is not translated into reward. There is a lot of billions of dollars in climate finance. Women don't have even 1%, because the studies show that we have 70% for all the engineers people and 3% for women engineers. You know, it completely. How can we explain that? So the practices, the management practices, naturally are sustainable by the women. They know that. I learned the quality of fuel wood. I think I was 5. I knew that this, how to call champignon, on appelle ça quoi encore? Mushroom. This is edible and this is not edible. I was not 5. And that was, I gained it from my mother. I get it from my mother. So, and I grew up like that. My mom was saying, no, just go and cut some leaves. We're going to do this. Go and collect this. And the trees were always there. The forests were always there. So it's naturally like that. And as we nurture the babies, that's how we care for our forests and our environment. But what we are asking today, to access the climate finance. And this, the Women Plus, now, they cannot deny it, yeah? They cannot challenge that.
So there's one other aspect I didn't mention that we're going to be following up. We're starting a new fund and we have all kinds of big ideas. But one of the things we really want to do is encourage women to become the project developers. Why aren't women managing carbon projects, right? Why are we only seeing women as, at best, as the beneficiaries of the carbon projects? And so organizations like Cecile's, we've been saying to them, would you be interested to become a carbon project developer, right? And we've asked a lot of women's organizations across Asia and Africa, and everyone said we would, but we're intimidated. we don't understand it. We don't trust the carbon project players out there. And there's this sense that this is very, very complicated. And we thought, well, we can break that down. Let's do some capacity building, and this is where people like Edith and her group can help us. Train these women's organizations in how to measure carbon. And then we have double revenue for them because they're getting the carbon revenue as the developer as well. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Hi, my name is Caroline van Tilburg from Climate Asset Management. It is first of all very interesting to hear. And we are also investing in agroforestry projects in several countries in Africa, and we do understand the complexity of land tenure and also the benefit sharing mechanisms and how to empower women. And we are really looking at the moment for best practices on how to do it. And one thing that is really on my mind is the unintended negative consequences that could happen. And I'm just really curious from you, what can you advise us in making sure that we do use best practices and that we mitigate any possible unintended negative consequences? Okay, and I'm going to presume you may be referring to sexual violence or sexual abuse and things like this? For example, that you empower women, but then they also part of a household where the man, for example, does not accept a stronger voice. It's often in the nuances, I think, within the family setting. Exactly. That I actually want to learn from you. I'm going to hand it to her, but I'm going to tell you one thing that this woman that I still talk to in Kenya told me. She said, will you women in the North please stop telling us like we can handle that, right? Like don't deny us certain access to resources because you're assuming that this has a negative culture. And that was really a profound thing to me. But maybe you have something to say about that as well.
Yeah, I think that in our context, and we are in a patriarchal system, and we were part of that, and we have been, all our life is in there. You have to understand what it means being in a patriarchal model system, and where you have the power concentrated in the hand of the men. And what we are doing is to engage men. We have to engage men in support to what we are doing, because if you don't do that, even that women you're working with will not understand and get involved, because she's not lonely, she's part of her family, she has a husband, she has a family, she has a, that's how it is really engaging men. And that's why all this W+, we're going to train our girls and our boys in that. We're going to train them on gender. That's how we can take care of the challenges you are facing. That really the advice I could say. Yeah.
I guess I'll just. Oh, did you want to ask something else?
No. I just want to say thank you. I didn't know you wanted to say anything.
Well, yeah. One thing I'll also add is that when we're focused on what are the unintended consequences, we're really trying to make sure that it's like how do we prevent making someone's lives worse? But from the perspective of there may be challenges in the home life or disagreements in the home life. To me, that's not necessarily an unintended negative effect of the home life. It's a signal that now someone has an option that they have never had before, right? And they're open to, or they're able to have more discussions. So I'll give you an example. It's not from DevStream, but it's from my own personal experience in the African continent. Of my first time I ever went abroad, it was to Malawi, and we were focused on teaching girls how to sew reusable sanitary napkins. And a male came up to me and said, they'll never use that. We don't want to hang those up outside. And then a female teacher came up to me and said, this is amazing, right? We want to make sure that our girls can go to school and they don't have to withdraw from school 1 week every month. And then, so we went ahead with the project, even though we didn't necessarily have the support of the head teacher, but we just had separate meetings with all the girls and the girl teachers by themselves. And then the very next year, you saw the rate of students going to secondary school increase by 30%, right? And it was all girls. And then the next year, it was an increase of 80%, and it was all girls. And so then when we were looking at, you know, now what does that mean? Okay, now it's how can we finance all of this extra secondary schooling education that needs to be financed, right? And that was, you know, an unintended consequence, but it's not necessarily a, you know, like a total negative thing. It's now people have more opportunities, but now the families reported having really hard discussions about which child gets to go, right? Whereas before it was only the boys. And now they have to choose, like boys or girls, how can we raise money for both, right? And so, you know, when we're thinking about unintended consequences, it's a challenge because when you create more opportunities, then now you have to get the social structure around that community to adapt itself to then be able to accept all of this extra demand that you have for these opportunities.
Well, that's a great answer.
Thanks a lot.
Anybody else? I think we're over time, so that was a great way, Destiny, to end the whole discussion of women's empowerment. So thank you very much for coming and for these great questions. We look forward. Contact us, find us, talk to us, like Pierre has. If you're interested, we'd love to have more discussions about who wants to do what with us and Standard. We've got the W+ professor here. We're taking on that, right? So thank you very much.